For years, the auto industry has been telling us the same story. Electric vehicles are the future. Charging stations will be everywhere. Petrol engines are on borrowed time, and if you don't switch soon, you'll be left behind. But while everyone was watching batteries, charging speeds, and range numbers, one company quietly took a different path. BYD didn't just improve electric cars, they didn't just refine petrol engines either. Instead, they created something in between, something that looks ordinary from the outside, but completely disrupts the rules once you look under the hood. At first, the announcement barely caused a ripple, just another hybrid system, or so it seemed. But as details emerged, the conversation changed. Engineers started paying attention. Competitors grew uncomfortable, and suddenly this wasn't just about efficiency anymore. It raised a far more unsettling question. What if the future of cars isn't fully electric at all? What if the solution people actually want is neither pure EV nor traditional petrol, but something smarter, quieter, and far more practical? And most importantly, why is this making major automakers nervous? To understand that, we need to start with BYD itself, because this story didn't begin with cars. Section 1. The company that was never supposed to win. Most people think BYD is just another Chinese car brand that appeared overnight. That assumption couldn't be more wrong. BYD was founded in 1995, long before electric cars were trendy, and it didn't start by building vehicles at all. Its original business was something far less glamorous: mobile phone batteries. Back then, the world was dominated by brands like Nokia and Motorola. Batteries were everything, and BYD became deeply involved in understanding how energy storage actually worked, how batteries aged, how they failed, how did they overheat, and most importantly, how to make them safer and more reliable at scale. This wasn't just theory. BYD was manufacturing millions of batteries, learning through real-world use, not lab experiments. So when the company entered the automotive industry in 2003, many people laughed. A battery company building cars sounded like a risky experiment. But BYD wasn't thinking like a traditional automaker. It didn't see cars as engines first and batteries second. It saw cars as energy systems on wheels. That mindset changed everything. Over the years, BYD expanded into electric buses, trucks, energy storage, and power solutions. It wasn't chasing trends, it was building an ecosystem. When the Blade battery later gained attention for its safety and durability, it wasn't a sudden breakthrough. It was the result of decades of battery-focused thinking. And that same thinking shaped BYD's most controversial decision yet. While the rest of the world rushed toward all-electric futures, BYD hesitated, not because it doubted EVs, but because it doubted the timeline. And that hesitation led to a strategy most companies never saw coming. Section 2. Why BYD refused to go all in. On EVs on the surface, electric vehicles sound perfect. Zero emissions, quiet driving, low running costs. Governments love them, and advertisements make them look effortless. But real life tells a different story. BYD noticed something others ignored. People weren't rejecting EVs because they hated technology. They were rejecting them because they didn't trust the infrastructure around them. Charging anxiety wasn't a technical issue. It was a psychological one. In big cities, charging stations are growing. But once you leave urban centers, the picture changes fast. Smaller towns, highways, rural areas, charging becomes uncertain. One broken station, one unexpected detour, and suddenly the promise of convenience disappears. Then there's cost. EVs may be cheaper to run, but for many buyers, the upfront price still feels intimidating. Battery replacement fears, unclear resale value, and long-term reliability questions linger quietly in people's minds, even if they don't say it out loud. BYD realized something important. The world wasn't rejecting electric vehicles, it was rejecting uncertainty. People didn't want to gamble with their daily transportation. So instead of forcing a leap, BYD chose a bridge. Hybrids weren't a compromise to them. They were a transition strategy, one designed around how people actually live, not how companies wish they lived. But BYD didn't want to build hybrids the old way. They wanted something fundamentally different. And that's where their hybrid system changes the conversation entirely. Section 3. How BYD's hybrid system really works. When most people hear hybrid, they imagine complexity, buttons to press, modes to switch, systems you have to manage. BYD did the opposite. Their hybrid system was designed so the driver doesn't need to think at all. You start the car, you drive, and everything else happens automatically. At its core, the system combines a petrol engine and an electric motor. But unlike traditional hybrids, these two components don't constantly fight for control. In city driving, traffic lights, stop-and-go congestion, short distances, the electric motor does most of the work. The petrol engine stays quiet, sometimes completely off. This makes driving smoother, quieter, and far more efficient, where fuel is usually wasted the most. Once you move to higher speeds or need stronger acceleration, the system adapts instantly. The petrol engine steps in, but not like a conventional engine. Often, its primary role is to generate electricity rather than directly drive the wheels. The transition is seamless. There's no jolt, no sudden noise. Most drivers don't even notice when the system switches. And when you brake or slow down, energy that would normally be lost is captured and stored back into the battery. That energy is reused later, reducing fuel consumption without requiring any external charging. The key difference here is control. You don't manage it. The car does. This makes the experience feel familiar to anyone who has driven a petrol car before, except that the mileage improves, the noise decreases, and the drive feels calmer. But the real magic isn't just convenience. It's the safety net. And that's where many buyers start paying attention. Section 4. Reliability, maintenance, and the fear people don't admit. Whenever new technology enters the market, one question quietly dominates everything else. What happens when it breaks? Hybrid systems often get accused of being risky because they combine two power sources. People assume more parts mean more problems. But BYD approached this differently. In their system, the petrol engine works less than it would in a traditional car. Less work means less heat, less stress, and less wear over time. That alone improves engine longevity. The battery, on the other hand, is smaller than in a full EV. That means it operates under lower strain. Charging and discharging are tightly controlled, preventing extreme conditions that shorten battery life. Then there's braking. Because energy is recovered during deceleration, brake components wear down more slowly. That translates to fewer replacements and lower maintenance costs over time. Servicing remains familiar. Oil changes, filters, routine checks, nothing alien to traditional mechanics. There's no need for owners to relearn how cars work. And if one system ever underperforms, the other acts as backup. That redundancy provides something EVs often struggle to offer: reassurance. The kind of reassurance that makes people comfortable using a car not just for commuting, but for long journeys, unpredictable routes, and daily life without planning every kilometer. This sense of reliability is exactly why BYD's hybrid system began drawing attention beyond China. Because the world isn't uniform, and BYD understood that better than most. Section 5. Why this technology matters globally. One of the biggest mistakes the auto industry makes is assuming every country is ready for the same future. They aren't. In parts of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, electricity supply can be inconsistent. Charging infrastructure may exist in major cities, but it often disappears outside urban centers. In rural areas, EV charging is still a distant concept. For these regions, reliability matters more than ideology. People don't ask whether a car is futuristic. They ask whether it will start tomorrow morning. BYD's hybrid system fits these realities perfectly. It doesn't rely on charging networks to function. It doesn't punish drivers for living outside cities. It adapts instead. Fuel prices also vary wildly across countries. In some places, electricity is cheap. In others, petrol is more affordable. BYD's system adjusts automatically, using whichever source makes more sense at the moment. Government policies add another layer of complexity. Some countries subsidize EVs heavily, others don't. Some encourage charging infrastructure, others barely mention it. Hybrids bypass these uncertainties. They work everywhere, under almost any condition. And that adaptability gives BYD something most automakers lack: flexibility at scale. But none of this would matter if people couldn't afford the cars. Which brings us to pricing. Section 6. Pricing, mileage, and real-life costs. BYD never positioned its hybrids as luxury technology. The goal was simple: close the gap. Petrol cars are cheap to buy but expensive to run. EVs are cheap to run but expensive to buy. Hybrids sit in between. BYD kept battery sizes balanced, avoided unnecessary premium components, and focused on efficiency rather than spectacle. The result is a car that doesn't feel like a financial leap. Mileage is where hybrids quietly shine. In city traffic, where fuel waste is highest, the electric motor dominates. The constant stopping and starting that drains petrol engines becomes an advantage instead of a weakness. On highways, the petrol engine assists smoothly, maintaining efficiency without pushing consumption to extremes. The key isn't perfect numbers on paper, it's consistency. Drivers don't experience wild swings in fuel costs depending on conditions. Month to month, expenses remain predictable, and that predictability matters more than raw performance for most buyers, which leads to an uncomfortable reality for EV companies. Because in many markets, hybrids don't just coexist with EVs, they compete with them. Section 7. The quiet threat to EV. Only brands BYD doesn't present hybrids as an attack on EVs. Officially, it supports both paths, but in practice, hybrids slow EV adoption in places where infrastructure isn't ready. When buyers see a hybrid offering good mileage, lower cost, no charging anxiety, and familiar maintenance, many ask a simple question: why rush? This doesn't mean EVs are failing. It means the timeline isn't universal. Some buyers are ready for fully electric futures, others want something dependable today. BYD's hybrid system speaks to that second group, a group much larger than most companies admit. And that's why the conversation around this technology has spread beyond China. From Asia to Europe, analysts are watching closely, because BYD didn't just build a hybrid, it challenged the assumption that progress only moves in one direction. Conclusion: a different kind of future. BYD's hybrid system isn't flashy. It doesn't scream revolution. It doesn't demand lifestyle changes. And that may be its greatest strength. Instead of forcing people to adapt to technology, it adapts technology to people. It acknowledges that the future doesn't arrive at the same time for everyone, that infrastructure matters, that trust matters, and that practicality often beats ambition. Whether hybrids remain a long-term solution or a stepping stone, one thing is clear: BYD has rewritten the conversation. And as the industry races toward electrification, this quiet alternative might just shape the road more than anyone expected.